critical illness insurance, and TPD, which is total permanent disability. Critical illness insurance or critical illness protection is a rider or a benefit that you would bolt onto a life insurance policy. So you may have $1 million worth of life cover and $250,000 worth of critical illness protection, which you would bolt onto it as an additional benefit. Critical illness insurance has been available to consumers since the early 1980s, created or pioneered by Dr. Marius Barnard, who was one of the surgeons involved in one of the very first heart transplant operations, a successful heart transplant operation. What he identified in his work through the course of his life was that as much as medical advances are meaning that they can repair or make good, as it were, people with very serious illnesses, one of the challenges that they faced with getting the people better was the stress that they were under as a result of being plucked from their life into a hospital bed. So working with insurance companies, he created critical illness insurance that is there to provide a cash injection when somebody needs it most. Let me give you an example of how critical illness might work. It's not to be confused with medical insurance. That's a completely separate product and solution. Critical illness is there to create cash, to give the policy owner or the person insured choices, options at a time they might need it most. So let's say that I wake up tomorrow morning and I discover a lump in my throat. I venture down to a clinic or hospital and undergo a number of tests, and we identify, or they identify rather, that it's cancer, a serious form of cancer. Well, if it's life-threatening, which it probably would be, I'm going to take that situation very seriously. It may be for me that I decide that I actually want to seek medical treatment in another country. It may be that I want to seek medical treatment in my home country. It may be, if it's a particularly unusual strain of cancer or something life-threatening and it's new to the medical teams here or at home, that I want to seek medical treatment in another country. Maybe a pioneer in Munich or New York, whatever the case may be. But it's going to certainly grab my attention and it's going to take me out of the picture. And of course, taking me out of the picture is going to have impact on my family, it's going to have impact upon my income and my employer by default by my absence. So as far as employment law is concerned here in Dubai, as you probably know, it's arguably limited compared to some countries. I think from memory the employment law states here that for 15 days you get full pay, and then after 15 days you get half pay, and after 30 days by law you get nothing. That doesn't mean that your employer won't support you. All I'm just highlighting is that's the law of the land as it stands currently. So if you have a critical illness and you are forced to make a decision about seeking treatment in another country or by choice, then that could seriously affect your income. Plus you may be considering other private medical resources to get yourself better. So going back to my example of waking up with a lump in my throat and I seek out, say, medical support in the UK, well, you know, I've got to get there to start with. I've got to potentially stop getting my income from Dubai, at least after a period of time. And I've got to position myself with the right doctor in the UK. That might be through the NHS, but I also want my family to visit me. I want the school fees to continue to be paid. I want the mortgage to be paid. I want the car to be paid. I want the DY to be paid. So all those costs of life will of course continue irrespective of how well or unwell I am. So critical illness is there really as a cash injection, like a financial cushion and airbag that injects cash into that situation if you suffer a critical illness. It gives you the choices to make the right decision, both to get better, but also to recover. You know, some illnesses, it might take you out for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years. So it really is an emergency fund to give you choices, time to get better and recover to your normal self, as it were. I think that you need to really lift the bonnet on a critical illness insurance policy and understand what it is. Critical illness insurance is not a cover-all. It doesn't cover everybody just because they're deemed to be critically ill. To qualify and to get a payout from an insurance company, it has to be one of their defined specific critical illnesses. So some of the premium insurance providers will typically have a list of critical illnesses, a defined specific list of critical illnesses, ranging everything from Alzheimer's through to different ranges of cancer, different stages of heart attack, loss of limb, a whole variety of different critical illnesses. Typically, as I say, about 34, 35 critical illnesses. But lift the lid, you know, understand it, read it, check it out. You know, what is actually covered with this before you sign on a dotted line. You know, and if you're pondering or on the fence about critical illness, because it is expensive, you know, as dollar for dollar compared to life insurance, i.e. how much you're paying on a monthly basis to how much you get out, critical illness is more expensive, but it's more expensive for a reason, and that's because it's quite likely that you could suffer a critical illness. In the UK alone, 1 in 2 people born after 1960 will suffer some form of cancer. But of course, will you suffer the type of cancer that is defined in the specified list of a critical illness? Well, that's something to understand, something to read, and something to digest. So also look at your family history. It may be that you're a star athlete. It may be that your family, your extended family, your fathers, your grandparents, your great-grandparents have never suffered anything of that sort. So maybe you don't need that. Maybe you have sufficient resources in your bank account or that you can get access to that you don't need critical illness insurance. But of course, critical illness insurance is not just for those that couldn't afford to support themselves. Critical illness insurance is there, of course, to protect what you already have. So you may have enough money to take a year out of work or 2 years out of work, but do you have access to that money? Is it liquid, and would you want to spend it? Or is it a better deal for you to take out an insurance policy and pay a certain amount on a monthly basis that, God forbid, something does happen, there's a cash injection for you. So the takeaway points from that, in my opinion, is look into the marketplace, look at the provider, as always, look at the credit rating of that provider, really read the terms and conditions, get a full understanding of what it exactly is that they're covering, and then make your informed choice about how much, if you do, want to bolt on critical illness insurance to your life insurance policy. Do remember, of course, with a critical illness insurance policy that it pays out once. You have one critical illness, it pays out, it's over. TPD, which stands for Total Permanent Disability, is another bolt-on rider or benefit to a life insurance policy. So if you take a life insurance policy, you may well bolt on, as I mentioned before, a critical illness policy on top of that, or benefit rather, and then in addition to that, you may well bolt on a TPD policy. TPD, as Total Permanent Disability, is as described. Again, there's defined terms and conditions. You must read those to understand those. It's not a case of that you're partly disabled. You've got to understand the description, total permanent disability. Within an insurance terms and conditions, there'll be a number of tests that they would carry out to see if you qualify as a total permanent disabled person. And they would involve being able to, as an example, walk 200 metres unaided without being in severe pain, being able to go to the bathroom on your own, being able to do a number of basic chores and activities to look after yourself. And they really would test those, of course, before they pay out. With regard to the cost of TPD in comparison to critical illness cover, it's arguably quite cheap. On a normal policy, it might cost you an additional maybe $7 or $10 a month. On perhaps a higher sum assured, you may be looking at a bit more than that, maybe $30 to $40 a month. So again, it's about making a decision, understanding exactly what's on offer. Don't just take it as a carte blanche cover-all. Really read the terms and conditions. Is this right for me? Shop around, try different providers, try different sources of information. Once you've read it, get some costs and then make a decision accordingly. Okay? Thank you.